Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to have with me Jon Lucas, who is the head of pricing at Cornerstone. Welcome.
Thank you.
And maybe before we start, if you could give folks a brief overview of Cornerstone, what your company does, and yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Cornerstone Building Brands. We have two major commercial sales channels. Um, the first one is our engineered building systems. So in that case, it's a configured product where every building is unique. We do the design, drafting, and the engineering for a building.
Mhm.
We fabricate the metal out of steel, and we ship it to the job site. And our customer takes possession of the goods at the job site and erects the building. Our second division is a components division where we sell each of the individual pieces and parts of that, of what would be a metal building. So it could be anything from a replacement part, replacement panel, to a bag of screws, all the way up to a roofing or a wall system for a major project.
Awesome. Yeah, so several parts of the value chain, somewhat complex. I also know you guys have different brands that you operate with.
We do. We came together through acquisition. So we at one point had too many brands that were all essentially doing the same thing. So one of the things we've been working on over the past couple of years is to kind of consolidate the brands, make things a little bit more streamlined, get everybody on the same ERP system,
Uh-huh.
follow some more uniform pricing practices and governance.
Yeah. Talking about pricing, so what got you into pricing? How long have you been doing pricing? And yeah, what's a little bit your personal journey into
Yeah.
the pricing field?
I've been involved in pricing for about 15 years. I started off in accounting, and I did accounting and finance type
Hmm.
of roles, accounting manager for a while. But it always kind of in the back of my head that I really liked the strategy and some of the sales and marketing issues that were going on.
Uh-huh.
So I eventually had a kind of a lateral move to work with an inside sales to manage an inside sales team and a customer service team, and and pricing was part of that job, right? It was part of the responsibility of that team. Um, so as I worked through that, I became a little bit more, had a little bit more pricing responsibilities as time went on. And from there, I moved on to a full time pricing role. And the thing I like about it is it kind of combines both those disciplines, right?
Yeah.
Managing an accounting and finance team and managing a sales and marketing team. Kind of we put that together, and that's kind of where pricing lives. It
Interesting.
works for me because there's certain days when I kind of feel like doing something more on the analytical side.
Yeah.
So there are times when I like to be with the sales teams and the marketing teams. So I just happen to be the kind of person that kind of enjoys both.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually a theme we've heard frequently. You actually have to have both caps. You need to have the data side, but then also the people side on the other end. Uh, Maybe just thinking of the challenges that you dealing with as a pricer. What are some of those pricing challenges for Cornerstone that you're confronted with?
Well, over the past year, like I'm sure a lot of others, we dealt with massive inflation. We had over 330% inflation in cost of steel, and steel is the largest raw material by far. So that was obviously a challenge. We had to do things we had never done before in terms of rationing material and that kind of thing. So that's one of the major challenges. Um, Another one is that we have, our buildings are configured products. So each one is totally unique. No two are the same. Even if you wanted to make them the same, they wouldn't be the same because of
Right.
building codes and other things like that. So other things like that. So we've got to be able to price a configured building, but we also have components which are, every component is exactly the same. Every unit coming off the assembly line is the exact same. So we've got two different pricing strategies and formulas and methods to manage. Um, so I think that's one of the kind of the challenges. For certain sales channels, our size is very different than some of our competitors, and that means that they have different inventory turns.
Mhm.
We have better buying power, but they get inventory faster, and in times of serious inflation or deflation, it throws off the material costs, the alignment between your price and the material costs. So that's one of the things. We have to really understand um, our our long-term cost forecast up to 6 months, in advance of where we are if we really want to price.
Independently of inflation, actually, right? Yeah. 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 I want to touch on inflation a little bit, but maybe before we go down that route, um, So I heard there's a lot of complexity in terms of product. Every project is a snowflake. Complexity in terms of kind of sales channel as well and sales teams. How about customer complexity?
We do. One of the things that we've been able to improve our pricing. One of the levers we use to improve our pricing is segmenting our customers
Uh-huh.
into 5 or 6 different categories,
Uh-huh.
depending on how you do that. And different categories, customers have different price elasticities, and different end uses have different price elasticities.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as an example, when you have an architect that's involved in a project, that they look at that project as their masterpiece. Right? So they're not necessarily interested in designing it to the most cost effective way. They want a certain number of
Yeah.
bends in the roof,
Yeah.
and they want it very, now if it's a commercial warehouse, different story, right? They're more like, how much weight can we get out of the building? How, what's the lowest cost we can make it so we can put that building up and start running production.
Interesting.
So if you look at different types of customers and different end uses of buildings, those are some of the things we've done to kind of segment our pricing and price with different strategies.
Very interesting. Not just thinking of Cornerstone, but within your pricing career, have there been particular challenges that you helped to solve and that you're particularly proud of? Pricing achievements, personal pricing achievements.
Yeah. I think pricing people are always under the pressure to make the pricing more sophisticated,
Uh-huh.
but we're also always under the pressure to make the pricing simpler, depending on who you're talking to on a given day, right? So there have been times when we've removed a lot of complexity out of the system that really wasn't adding any value.
Uh-huh.
So extra layers of approval.
Uh-huh.
That's one thing that we didn't need. That kind of thing. One of the things that I think we've maybe taken a little bit of a different approach than others is that we have more of a collaborative approach to pricing than a lot of companies between the pricing team and the sales team. So, they don't view us as the police that are gonna, give them a hard time
Right.
if a sale goes through with below a certain margin. My team's goal is to be a value add. So we explain to them that we are here to make your lives easier. We have time to do things that you don't have time to do. If you're a salesperson, you're traveling, you're getting on a plane, you're meeting with customers are moving your meetings around. Let the pricing team let us tell you. Let's tell you where you're overpriced potentially and putting volume at risk. Let us tell you where you're underpriced compared to other customers, or where you may be undercutting one of your own customers. Let's advise you on a price when you walk into a new customer. We'll never give you a price that's going to embarrass you, and we'll never give you a price that's going to get you on the wrong side of finance, and get a nasty email or something, right? So
Interesting.
rather than locking down the system and having a rigid approval system, we've always tried to have more of a collaborative approach. So that's one of the things I was,
Interesting.
I'm kind of you asked what we're most proud of, and
Yeah.
getting that to work, in a collaborative way, it ends up saving time for the sales team. It's better work for the pricing team, right? 'Cause
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
clock reviewing bids, right?
Yeah.
And we're able to, increase our margins that way.
Interesting. I suppose there were some learnings on the way to actually get to that conclusion. Can you think of any pricing bloopers or any of those hard learnings where you thought you had a great strategy but it actually didn't work at all, but you had some good insights from it and maybe next time you
Yeah.
came with a different solution?
Yeah, one of the things we did, we knew we weren't getting too aggressive with our margins. We weren't gonna overdo it, but we did get our products out of line a little bit with each other, so that we wanted the margins so badly that we ended up having our price sheets to our customers. They just looked a little bit odd. So, if you think of a product where you would expect two products to have about the same price or a good, better, best, sometimes our good, better, best relationship kind of got jumbled up. Or it was like, instead of good, better, best, it was good, better, and best, right?
Yeah.
We kind of messed up the ratio. So, and then we did that in the spirit of thinking, all right, we're putting everything at the right price, but it just seemed odd to the sales team and seemed odd to the customers. So we had to kind of dial it back and align the products a little bit more of a rational way. So that's one thing we learned.
So let's go back to inflation. You already mentioned 300% cost increase. So what do you do in such a scenario? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had to do things we had never done before. We had to have some, first thing we had to do is have as open communication as we could with our customers
Oh.
and explain to them that, we this is something different than we've experienced. We're not going crazy here on our price in order to get rich. This is more about keeping us financially sound.
Uh-huh.
And part of that conversation that that I felt pretty strongly we needed to emphasize was that you as our customer, you want us to maintain financial health, because if we start squeezing our margins too hard in spirit of passing on too small of a price
Yeah.
increase, think of what happens. We end up with layoffs, or we end up with we can no longer ship on time in full.
Right.
We could end up with quality issues. We could lose valuable people who are actually exactly who you need during hyperinflation. That's something I
Right.
think people don't. If you think about when the supply chain gets that complicated, and you have material showing up at random times, and it's feast or famine at the plant, it's not like you can just put it on the shelf and wait. You need somebody who really understands how to deal with those challenges. So to us, it was important that we, protected some of the key people in our organization. If we started squeezing our margins too hard, we wouldn't have been able to, maintain financial solvency. So
Yeah.
I think, in at least in the construction industry, I think companies did a pretty good job of kind of, maintaining our financial health, with our pricing all the way down, from the mill to the fabricator to the builder to the
Right.
end customer. And sometimes that would bust the budget of the end use.
Yeah.
So but our theory was, if that's the case, then we're all better off without a bad sale. As much as we want that sale, if it busted the budget and that building can't go up right now, probably all better off without it.
Right.
And when things return to a little bit normal, inflation gets back, then we can build. Then let's all build the building.
Yeah. I love that being very transparent and sharing some of your challenges with the client to get that buy-in and that understanding, because it is a very different situation than normal. I also imagine that there have been more tactical changes, the way that you look at prices and the way that you actually implement price increases. Is that correct?
Yeah, base changes more often than we
Yeah.
used to during the period of inflation, right? So, we would maybe make 2 or 3 typically price changes a year, to level off with our costs. So sometimes up, sometimes down, kind of thing. But during the hyperinflation, we had to do them a lot.
Right.
So the good news there is you get better at it. You asked about the execution and the tactical standpoint. You get better when you
It's like a muscle that you train, right?
exactly. It's
Yeah.
muscle that you train, and your processes get better and tighter. We removed a lot of the waste. We removed a lot of like the extra emails and people double checking stuff and
Right.
asking questions.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It got a little bit more streamlined. So as a lesson learned from that, it's like, okay, let's not go backwards. Even if we don't have to make a price change as often as we used to, we've got it right now. So let's
Right.
make sure everybody's got the notes and the
Yeah.
procedure, and that we can execute. If we don't have to do it again in 6 months, when people's memories get a little bit fuzzier and some of the data changes, maybe some personnel changes, let's make sure we have that standard operating procedure so that we can execute that
Yeah.
without any issues.
Sounds like a lot of work. So how big is actually the team to support all those changes and yeah, also get the internal buy-in, not just the customer buy-in?
Yeah, we have one dedicated pricing manager to each of our divisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of supervise that. In some cases, they do more of the pricing, so they report to the GM or the president of that division. We a lot of support from senior management for what we were trying to accomplish, because they realized how fast that price can influence EBITDA.
Yeah.
So they understood and appreciated that, and gave us the support that we needed. So that we did have to, during hyperinflation, we did have to call back some resources that we, had with us before, do some legwork. I'm glad but like we just kind of needed that in order to get going. Once we got the momentum, we got our, figured out what we're doing a little bit better. Yeah.
I know we've known each other for quite a few years now, and the pricing team was not that big first time we met. So how do you actually get the commitment from the leadership to make an investment in the pricing team? How do you get the buy-in?
Yeah, I think part of it was that we demonstrated the value of having a more frequent pricing meetings with a very specific agenda.
Uh-huh. like a pricing council type of meeting?
Pricing council kind of
Yeah.
meeting. Some people call it center of excellence. We don't call it center of excellence, but it's that type of a thing, right? So we actually got to the point where we were doing it weekly, and we had 4 topics that we review every week. And what happened was the reason that senior management got interested in expanding the pricing department was that they found interest in these and got value out of these meetings,
Uh-huh.
right? So otherwise they wouldn't have
Right.
shown up and accepted them on a weekly basis.
Yes.
So we had 4 topics that we cover in pretty good detail, and it held people's interest. It was the cost, and it was the feedback from the sales team, and it was how our margins were doing, and it was the capacity levels at our plants. So we looked at those four topics every week, and we found that there was some value in looking at them every week. And then there was periods where we did bi-weekly and monthly also, but the senior management saw some value in getting those updates.
Uh-huh.
And then we can make once we understood those updates, we felt like very confident making a pricing move. It's not like I think a lot of companies they close the books, and then a week or two later the P&L comes out, and then look at the margin, and somebody doesn't like the margin and say, okay, let's consider a pricing action. But if you think about it, that's like a 6-week
Right.
type of a thing. So our theory was we're going to meet every single week. So if we want to make a move on week 2 or week 4 or every week, then we can, and let's go ahead and do that.
Uh-huh.
And I think that put us in a way that we could react a lot faster than our competition.
And I suppose it also has to do with your industry specifics of the raw material cost changing so massively within a short span of time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
That's right. When I think senior management gets more interested in
Yeah.
in the pricing as raw material
Yeah.
fluctuates. So what we always do is what I try to do with my team is I say, if during the periods of stability, that's when we do our maintenance. That's when we do our homework. That's when we get our reports in order. That's when we upgrade processes. So we always have kind of a backlog of pricing activities that is kind of like, we'll get to these when we hit a period of stability. During the periods of inflation, we have our responsibility becomes more to communicate and collaborate with senior management and with the senior price leaders to make sure that we're all on the same page and execute the strategy.
Interesting. And when you had those meetings, those Center of Excellence meetings, was senior leadership involved from the get-go, or did they learn about all the learnings that they would get from those meetings and started to join later on? Did you create a momentum that way?
I think it worked just like you said. It was a little bit slow to begin with, but
Yeah.
then they started saying, gee, I wish I didn't miss that
Right.
last meeting because now I'm not up to speed with
Interesting.
something that's going on the following Wednesday or something like that. I mean, it became important. So, yeah.
And I suppose also you were able to prove value in terms of, what your help did versus decisions without the support of the pricing team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could really, you could see that when you hear, sometimes the sales leader, kind of use things that you said during a meeting, or say, hey, can you send me that slide, or can you send me the report that backs that up? An example would be with with our sales team, we really tried to explain to them not just that costs were going up, it was the supply and demand dynamics that were driving that cost up or down.
Yeah.
That way they could be armed to explain that to the customer and answer the customer's questions. I think a lot of companies, you give the sales team, here's the bullet points. So you could say, your price is going up, Mr. Customer, and here's why. But they don't really understand
Yeah.
right? So then they're in a position where they just handed the customer a piece of paper and they're not ready to answer an in-depth question. So we tried to educate them about really
Fantastic.
weekly basis. And that's
Awesome.
really the senior sales. They made them feel a lot more confidence, in what we were doing.
Yeah, so John, you've more than a decade, 15 years of experience in pricing. Just curious, if you were to give your younger you some advice at the beginning of your career of, things to do or not to do, or, how to actually make a career out of pricing, what would that advice have been?
One thing I would say is if you're not with a company that takes pricing seriously,
Uh,
then get out. Do not try to justify your existence. Don't sit there and try to, send smart emails and with good ideas. If they don't take it seriously, there's plenty of companies that do.
yes.
So that'd be one piece of advice I'd give. And another one would be to get some sales experience under your belt. Salespeople don't like to take direction from someone who's never sold anything before. So if you once the sales team can appreciate that you've actually kind of been in their shoes and respect what they do, that can go a long way. So I would definitely advise spending time with the sales team. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, that'd be my main.
Okay, awesome. Good advice. Well, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for making time, and hope you join us next time.
Thank you. It's great.